Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. Behind me, 2003 PT Cruiser. We're going to be replacing the crank position sensor. Another easy repair, we got to go under the vehicle in order to get access. So right under the vehicle, this is the transmission bell housing right here, and right up there is the starter motor. The crankshaft position sensor is right under the starter motor, above this support bracket. So what we have to do first is remove this support bracket. There's a couple of bigger bolts, I believe 2 18mm bolts, that bolt into the transmission bell housing. You can see one sticking out right here. And 3 other bolts, I believe they're a 15mm, bolting into the engine block. Once we remove all those bolts, this bracket will just wiggle out and give us access behind it to our crank position sensor. I'm gonna apologize for any lighting issues. The sun is like right over there, perfectly shining down. So hopefully this will still be lit up enough. So I'm gonna start by getting the 18mm bolts first. Crack that bottom one loose. That wasn't too bad. I'm gonna go up and do the top one. Now having a ratchet with a flex head, super nice. Got this radiator hose kind of just in the way. Before we can get that top 18mm, we actually have to take out that 15 first, because the head of the 15mm bolt is in the way. So let's do that. Just gonna crack all the 15s loose. See if I can get my electric ratchet in there to speed things up. Not quite. It's a little too chunky. Okay, let's do that one. So I was able to do one, but none of the others. Hoping to loosen enough I can get my fingers on. There we go. Just a little finger power. Bolt number 2. Nice. The 3 15s are out. Now let's get these 18s. Like if this radiator hose wasn't in the way, that'd be helpful. Nice. Now, this one's a pain in the bolt. All right, got it. There it is in its glory. So let me swing you around and show you where the sensor is. Once that bracket's off, you got perfect access to that sensor. So now we want to disconnect the electrical connector. There's that red tab. We want to pull out of the way or push out of the way, and then we'll pinch the connector and release it. Then there's a bolt holding that sensor on. We'll take that off, pull the sensor out, put the new one in, bolt it on, plug it in, and button it back up. So I have to use a little pry bar with a little finesse because it's not coming out of its hole, but I don't want to break it either. Just a little finesse. It's slowly coming out. Well, that's a bummer. It broke. Yikes. Let me show you what happened. You can see right here the sensor broke. I had it still plugged in, so I thought it would be easier to unplug once the sensor was out. But you can see back in there the sensor is still in the hole. It's not coming out. So I'm gonna keep finessing it, keep using a pry bar, keep trying to figure out how to get that out of the hole. But I think even if this happens to you like it did to me, that's okay. No big deal, we can still get it out of the hole. All right, got it. Having a big long screwdriver and getting it under this lip here and wiggling it back and forth and then getting back over here and pushing on it and just gotta wiggle and finesse it out, but it did come out. So that's really great. All right, got the old one out and we'll put in the new one. What we want to do is lubricate that O-ring. I lubricated mine with dielectric grease. You can use whatever lubricant you want to use, and we just pop it back in the hole. Grab my flashlight, pop off this connector. You just have to push this red tab over. I hate these red tabs. I don't know why Dodge uses them. A skinnier screwdriver. There we go, just push it out of the way. Then this connector tab here, we can push and separate. There we go. Get the old one out, plug in the new one. I'm gonna take this back out. It didn't really want to pop in for me because of this O-ring. So I'm gonna plug it in first, like that. And then put it in its hole. My flashlight. There we go. That might give me a little more meat to push it in with. So I put the bolt back in. It's still not quite seated. What I'm gonna do is see if I can tighten down the bolt a little. Got the bolt started. Now I'm just gonna use my pry bar as a tool for pushing on. There we go. I'll tighten the bolt up a little more. Use my pry bar again. Almost there. There we go. Using the pry bar helps because it's hard to get your hands in there with enough force. So you can have the pry bar tip on the sensor and then you can push from down here and that just gives you a little more leverage, a little more strength. But we are in, so I'm just gonna tighten that bolt down. Okay, just snug is all it needs to be. Nice. Torch to factory snugness. I'm gonna push in that red clip. All right, let's put our bracket back on. Remember, our 18mm bolts go in first. So the bottom one I don't have all the way tight. It's still a little loose, so I can move this around. So before tightening these up all the way, I'm just gonna put the two back 15mm bolts on, just so I can line up where they're supposed to go and wiggle this bracket as needed. There we go. And then on that far one, there's a bracket for this hose here. So we want to make sure that that goes back on like it's supposed to. Okay, got those two in. Now I'll finish these off. And we'll put this last 15 in. All right, there you go. That's how you can replace a crank position sensor on these PT Cruisers. Not too crazy. Getting that bracket off is a little challenge on the hands, getting those bolts out. Not a whole lot of room, but it is doable. And the sensor came out in a couple pieces, no big deal. Using a combination of a pry bar, flathead screwdriver, wiggling on it, it'll pop right out. And now getting it back in also required my pry bar because again, just the hand room isn't quite there. So getting my muscles to get it fitted in didn't quite work. So I took the screw or the bolt, bolted it in as much as I could, just nice and snug, and then used that pry bar to push on the top of the sensor to get the other side in. So it kind of just like wobbled in, and that's how I got it back in. So really not too challenging. Using a lubricant definitely helps getting it back in. If you're replacing the crank position sensor because your car won't start, it should start right away now that it receives that crank position sensor signal. That check engine light should also go away within a start or two. If not, go ahead, clear the codes with your scan tool, and you should be good to go. All right, thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, see you on the next one.